Hello, everyone. Welcome to another one of our exciting live streams. Today we are in lovely Iceland. I've actually changed the time of date for multiple different reasons here. The simplest of which, of course, is the fact that this time of year it doesn't really get a lot of sunshine. So if you wonder why I'm just kind of sitting here relaxing, it's because the designers of this lovely airplane decided to go ahead and make it so that you could just carry fuel into the sim with you. You had to actually set it and fill up when you got in here. So I'm actually waiting for this guy to sit here and fill my fuel tanks. So the purpose is I can actually jump in. Now, one of the things, of course, we can go to weight and balance, and you can see it's slowly starting to fill us up here, which is awesome because we need that gas to actually get going here. But it's just sort of one of those things where I appreciate the details. I really, really love details and things like that. But stuff like this, make the note of this for everybody out there who does design aircraft, who makes these things. They should be things that should be toggleable, because some people just want to get in and go, and I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by that. I love the fact we've got the aux tank, we have the right tank for that side, and it's very, 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 very cool. But we're all set, so now we can actually get this thing going. Oof! There it goes. There it is. Nice. I'm not going to go through the whole procedure, of course, winding up the flying wheel and doing all that, and opening catches and stabilizing the pressure. But you can probably tell by the sheer volume of this thing right now just how insanely crazy this airplane is as far as just old school handleage. You know, one thing I really, really get a kick out of, too, is you can see down here, you can actually adjust the friction locks here. So if I were to increase the friction lock, it would make it physically harder to actually move things like the actual yokes. So one of the things you'll notice is like this will move up and down, or I can adjust this, and I pull this down, my throttle starts shaking all over the place. It's just such a cool detail. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this show on a road, so to speak. I'm going to give this a nice thing. Then how loud this thing is, by the way. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm talking about when I say brumbly. Let's go. Yeah! This thing requires a prodigious amount of right rudder in order to stabilize it. I'm full right rudder, by the way. Pull the nose up, and in traditional brumbly airplane fashion, not only do we not need a lot of runway to get airborne, and when you bring up the landing gear, it actually has this really fun little feature that when you do it, it'll actually, like, you have to click it, and then you have to snap it, and then you have to click it again. It's just wild. All right, let's get going here. I actually have to turn my own volume down. It's literally that loud in here, even though I have my in-game volume down. Let's go and reduce the power a little tiny bit. I did shut off engine failures here for the purposes of our little flight here, but doesn't mean that other things won't probably mess up. As you can see in the beginning, we carried a little less fuel than we intended to. Now, one thing I love is if you want to actually measure the fuel in this thing, I love this. You pull and you just let go, and then it basically applies enough pressure that you can see I've got like 48, 49 gallons here, which is plenty for a flight here. So again, we're lovely here in Iceland. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to kind of see what Iceland looks like this time of year, just for the benefit of everybody who's curious, I'm going to go flip it on live time and live weather. That's what it looks like right now. Of course, you could say, well, just change what time it is. That'll fix it. Not really. Let me show you why. There we go. I'll go ahead and bring it to about 12, and that's roughly what we're going to expect to see here. And of course, you can tell by just how much this aircraft is getting bounced around at the moment. You have a pretty good idea of sort of what we're up against as far as the weather of this country this time of year. Now, one thing I'm really surprised with is there's really not a heck of a lot of snow. I mean, there's a little bit of like on the caps of the mountains and stuff like that. And that is just absolutely beautiful there. Get a good look at this as we kind of come swinging around. But not as much as I expected. And unfortunately, during our journey today, we're not going to get the opportunity to see all of this beautiful island. And and of course, the reason we're not going to get to see the whole island is it's a big island. One of the things I completely did not realize with Iceland is just the size of this island. And it's one of those situations where, you know...
Airspace frequency change approved.
Frequency change.
Reykjavik Tower, red 64 frequency change.
I love the rudders on old school planes because they're gigantic. So you like tap a little tiny bit and the whole nose that goes flying over there on the side there. Let's go ahead and change the weather. I'm actually going to go, I don't mind the weather, but I do mind the time. So I'm actually going to bring us back a couple months so we can at least kind of see what's going on here. There we go. Looks pretty good to me. A little bit of right foot. Man, this thing is probably... We have actually used this airplane before in previous streams, for those of you who don't remember. We were in Kyrgyzstan, I believe, is the last time we pulled this plane out. And as my memory serves me, we probably had the same problems with it too, which is so much fun. And I actually got to increase throttle again. I love how this thing's like supercharged. Look at my fuel pressure gauge, it's just dancing, and my oil pressure gauge is going, what are you doing right now? Pretty typical for this airplane. Nothing I need to worry about yet, though. No autopilot, of course, so we got to actually fly things correctly today, which is kind of fun. Of course, we're not really doing instrument flying, and I'm pretty confident we just blitzed by that little cloud right there, which is too bad, but we're going to manage with it, kind of a thing like that. All right, go ahead and level this off, and then we'll kind of talk about some of our excitement. One thing I find very interesting is I didn't set any of my cowl flaps or anything, but my current temperature is 10 degrees. I know that this aircraft, when it came out, they promised all sorts of stuff, but unfortunately we never saw it, or if they did, they didn't tell us about it after the fact. So I'm sure there's plenty of patches that have come out that I'm just missing and things like that, but that's all right. There we go. Go ahead and level this sucker off. I like my little Bendix King there over there on the right, an OOOOG, basically attitude indicator kind of a thing. We're pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of trim everything out for our cruise here. We don't need to be traveling at full supercharger, or turbocharger rather. Give that a little bit of a tug there. We're just going to reduce RPM just a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. Oh, yeah, listen to that Pratt & Whitney power there. Whoop, too much. This is an old school one. You got to give it time to react. There we go. Nice. Take a look over my right, and I think I've got it where I need to do. My aerial temperature is unusually low, but not too concerned with it. And we're on our way once again. Give it a couple taps of trim. Line myself up. Yeah, not too bad. This thing actually grooves really, really nicely. And this airspace is airspace. That'd be fun too. The airspeed's a little high. Well, the temperature is a little on the low side. That's usually a good indicator that we need to lock and pull some things up. My oil shredder right now is completely closed, and we're not heating up very quick. The other thing, of course, is my temperatures for my cylinders are not heating up very quick. All indicative of something we either got the wrong oil in here, or it's a lot colder than I really thought it was going to be. But that kind of happens. Yeah. Well, air temperature right now I think is 17 degrees in the F. I think that's -8, -9 or so on the C. So it is a little chilly, to say the least. All right, well, I'll continue our little journey here. So my experience with Iceland, I've actually got a little tiny bit of experience with Iceland in the real world, I'm saying. And my first experience with it was on a journey to Paris, France, many, many years ago. This would have been 2010, I think, is roughly where it would have taken place. And at that particular time, we were traveling to Europe, and we were on... I think it was Iceland Air, and the big thing is that we had to do was to transfer here, and it was the middle of the summer. So I've got a fun picture of basically a little sundial showing 1 o'clock in the morning, and no problem. You can see probably about as good as you see here. Well, maybe not this bright, but still pretty darn bright. And I remember that to get through customs, they had to go track somebody down. Of course, you ask all these random crazy customs people, trying to find them. The guys, blinking, bleary-eyed, like the only customs person Reykjavik could find at that time, kind of a moment. It's like, yeah, and he just needs you to stamp our passport so we can finish going to Europe, please, kind of a thing like that. And it was just one of those like kind of odd moments where it's like, okay, I'll take it, kind of a moment like that. And I always got a kick out of stuff like that when that occurred. And the other thing too is when we're coming back from Paris, France, we actually stopped by Reykjavik again. And the cool thing there was, of course, the security people came up to me after we were already seated and said, "You've been selected for enhanced security." It's like, do I get a prize? Like, do I at least get like a pair of slippers or something to, thank you for your cooperation with, the TSA and everything like that? No, you don't. What they did is they took my bag and they said, "What is in this bag?" And I said, well, it's going to have whatever Tom Clancy novel I'm working on right now, probably a CD, a pair of headphones, things like that. And they're like, okay. So then they take it apart piece by piece, even though it's already been through the x-ray. It's already been through, like, the bomb scanners and everything. So it's like, all right, thank you. And they let you loose. And it's like, all right. Thank you, I guess. Just kind of one of those things. And it's so bizarre at the time. But I always like to make fun of it because, my nervous wife is sitting there, oh, no, we're in trouble kind of a thing. And it's like, I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay kind of a thing. It's just sort of one of those things. Just enjoying our little journey. And now one of the things, of course, I noticed, though, when we did arrive in Iceland in the summer, I mean, this is a very, very pretty Iceland. It does not have the gray, it does not have the brown, it does not have the black. This is very much almost like a Greenland thing going over, almost like a Nova Scotia, but a lot more mountainous, kind of, at least in this particular region, sort of a thing. But when we first got there, we thought we had basically flown to the moon, kind of a thing, because it was just so staggering just how everything was designed, or like how everything was just so empty. Like no trees, like yeah, grasses and stuff like that, but it was just like just kind of hung out sort of thing. Oh, DHC6, great choice, and a Diamond 62, that's an ultra modern choice. You're cheating. Not a bad problem though, not a bad problem at all. All right, just check my math here. It looks pretty good, fantastic. To the right a little bit, just kind of getting us on a nice healthy cruise. One of the things I appreciated about Iceland too is, we try to like get something to say, oh, we've been to Iceland kind of a thing at the time. When we had done that, what did we come up with? I think we got like a local chocolate bar. But one of the things I always got a kick out of as well was Iceland Air is a very interesting airline. Not like in a bad way, but like in making Iceland look cool way. One of the things they had was this little kind of promo video that it would play in front of your little seat, like when you can't watch the movies. I think I watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the new one, like twice during that film, or during that flight, rather. But what they would actually do there is they'd have little like snippets. Like, the Prime Minister of Iceland's phone number is in the telephone directory. And then it would be like, the most famous restaurant in all of Iceland is a hot dog stand and things like that. And of course, I joke about the hot dog stand when I realized the most famous restaurant in Maine, which is in New England, USA, happens to be a little, basically lobster joint. And by a little lobster joint, you got to imagine a shack that sells lobsters. It's called Red's, by the way. So if you're ever up in the Maine direction, you're like, oh, I could use lobster. I don't like lobster. My wife does not. Not a fan of that fact. But, I got to kind of roll with what I got, kind of a thing. Go get us all nice and lined up. And I'm doing pretty well, though. We're doing some dead reckoning here, and I'm reckoning that I'm going the right direction because where I'm supposed to be going is basically right over this hill here. So we're doing perfectly fine here. Just a teeny tiny little tap like that. I like that. Delightful. Really, really appreciate the instruments in this aircraft. I fly a bunch of different virtual airplanes all the time, and one of the things I never get spoiled with is instruments that behave like instruments in real planes. One of the things, if I don't touch the control, see how it's got a nice little wobble to it? That's accurate. See how the instruments can't decide what things are? That's accurate. Even though this is 1930s, late 1920s technology that we're operating right now, that is what I would expect to see. Another thing I really appreciate is this thing actually has a generator on it, like a legit generator, which I find very instrument. I like the instruments, nav instruments, pitot heater kind of a thing. But what I appreciate about that is just the fact that they behave. No instrument's that smooth, even modern ones. Digital ones have special filtering and stuff that makes them really, really butter smooth. But like your standard oil pressure gauge, when you give it a push, or not oil pressure, that'd be bad. Your standard fuel pressure gauge, whoa, maybe not that bad. That's actually kind of dangerous. One thing I am very curious about, however, though, is a minute ago, I remember how we put a bunch of fuel in this thing? I'm actually kind of curious to see what we're carrying. 70 gallons, we're fine. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Boeing 247 there, this lovely thing that I'm flying, excuse me, it is the winter and it is very dry. One of the cool things with this airplane, of course, is for those of you who Mountains of Madness, which is a lovely little story that you had from H.P. Lovecraft that was later made into a really fun game by Chaosium for the Call of Cthulhu tabletop RPG. And one of the reasons I love this plane, and I had to have it as soon as it came out, was this is the plane they were flying around Antarctica with. So every time I get an opportunity, it's like, hee, kind of a thing like that, because it's like, I know exactly what they're going through at the time, kind of a thing. All right, so time to lean my mixtures a little bit. So I think I've actually got myself a pretty good situation here. Of course, without an EGT, trying to get the mixture right on this airplane is a bit of a process, but that's all right. I'm cheating. Of course, you can't see how I'm cheating. Come to my right just a tiny bit. All right here. So according to my external instruments, we're actually okay. We could probably lean the mixture a tiny bit here. So I'll go ahead and give that a couple quick little taps here and see if I can get those temperatures up a little higher. I like how it says my exhaust gas temperature is 561. It's like, Celsius? There we go. There we go. It's feeling a little better. That'll actually get me a little bit of burst of speed here too, which is going to help us out quite a bit. Interesting thing here is I've got 153 indicated. I found the problem. Remember how we set live weather? That was the issue. Could not figure that out for the life of me. Yeah, it's better. I'm sitting there going, why am I getting 145 indicated, but I'm only getting 130 ground? I think I can answer that question a little better now. Much better. There we go. Go ahead and level this thing off, get everything all nice and reset, and we'll continue on our little journey here. Up to the right just a little bit. Now, as I was saying a few minutes ago, one of the things I found so fascinating about Iceland was just how desolate it is. You know, in a lot of the places that we visit and we go to all the time, you know, there's definitely quite a bit of civilization that we have. You know, even when we go in these like incredible enchanted, you know, journeys up in mountains and things like that, there's always a pretty good chance that we're going to encounter, you know, somebody's little cabin or something like that. But this island, which is just so fascinating for it, is just, it's just so empty. You know, you're traveling along and usually we see roads or something, but there are none. There simply aren't any. You know, one of the things they always say is, like, if you want to go travel to this country, you can use Reykjavik, which is where we're heading off to in a second, basically as a purpose of, like, basically a home base. And they say, well, what kind of car would you like to hire? You know, when you go to hire the car, naturally, you want to pick a car that had all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, just for, you know, your own safety, because of how ridiculously, like I said, just empty everything is. Now, the other thing that was so fascinating about Iceland that we're not going to get a chance to check out is way, way over in that general direction. Now, you can't see it, obviously, because it's farther away than I thought it was. Again, if we had a fighter jet, we could do this whole island, but now with something with propellers. But believe it or not, what's very fascinating is it is primordial over on that side of the island. You have these massive, massive snow-capped mountains with these huge sweeping glaciated valleys, and you're just rushing through it and there's nothing there. There's not even like, you know, like that little kind of dirt access road that you can kind of pick across the ground. That's like, oh, this is probably how they get up to the top to rescue people who climb it or something. It just doesn't exist. And like your typical kind of coastal roads, which you'll find in so many countries, you won't even see one of those. It's just that isolated, even though you have an island like this. Of course, one of the other uses of Iceland, for those of you who are familiar with all sorts of fictions, I made a reference to Tom Clancy a minute ago there, is you have a great story, and I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm not going to try. It was not the sum of all fears, but one of their stories there's actually an operation that takes place in Iceland, and it's one of those where until you see it, you're like, oh, I can see how you can get an army on this place. I just don't know where you would be able to hide them. You know, kind of one of those sort of scenarios. Got ourselves about 5,000 feet. Of course, the instruments would be kind of at the mercy of any sort of temperature changes and stuff. My oil temperature finally came out, even though I've had the oil shutters closed this entire time. But my cylinder head temperature is chilling down there. It's because they disabled thermal damage, so I don't have to worry too much about that kind of a thing. Not bad. Not bad in the slightest. I'd fly a little lower, but I know that we have some mountains we have to get over in a minute. One of the things my wife and I were thinking about doing was actually coming out here over April break for us, which is kind of one of the school breaks. And we're saying, well, this would be pretty cool. You know, we could kind of come out here and, you know, it's not a very long flight for us. It's like 5 hours, which is nothing. And it would be kind of something different, you know. I mean, check out the spas and all the other kind of cool things that they have going on in this island. And one of the things that kind of surprised us is we're like, oh, you know, just kind of go. It won't be busy or anything. But the amount of tourists they get here is actually pretty high. Tourism is a really big part of Iceland. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, you don't really want to go here this time of year because it's going to be too crowded. And you're like, crowded? What? Because we forget that the concentration of where all the folks live, kind of in the south that we're heading towards now, is the southwest anyway. Is, you know, they're not all going to be for whatever particular purpose there. And I just find that very fascinating. Of course, the other thing I think about is if only we had ourselves, you know, a nice little kind of float plane or something like that. We could go swinging in and out of these little lakes here and kind of bouncing off them or something. But I wanted to try to get a view for us of an airplane take off and land that was close enough that we could kind of get away with getting a little bit of a look at the place without basically being at the mercy of you know, just having an incredibly long flight or needing to go with a faster plane. So if you're wondering how I ended up where I ended up, that's how I ended up there. Another head. I've got 3 hours and 14 minutes worth of fuel, in case anybody's curious. One of the things I have sitting next to my desk here that you can't see that I probably would have in this plane is actually an E6B. It's the old-fashioned stainless steel variety. I got it for Christmas one year. I have the old paper one that they gave us during flight training when it was painful before we could use calculators. Now we can use calculators, and they're wonderful. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like just a blast from the past pulling that thing out. It's really good if you need to estimate things. Like really, really good. Like almost better, in my opinion, visually than a regular calculator. But it is a bit of a lost art for pilots to be able to do that, which is a shame. All right, see how you're doing. Excuse me, how are you doing today, ma'am? Oh, excellent. Where are you flying from? Over the Springs. And looking out the window here, you get an idea of just the scale of this plane. You know, when I look at it kind of from the side, or you look at it from a picture, it looks like it's kind of small. But this was basically a DC-3 Junior, if you want to kind of think about it this way. And this preceded the DC-1, 2, and obviously the DC-3. But you can definitely start to see some of the themes built in there. I love the fact it's got the anti-servo tabs there. See them? You can actually see built into the top there, and like the little kind of aileron trim and everything, all built in there. And also the fact that, like, you know, when I come up here, it's got the little lights mounted up in the front here. Explorer's Air Yacht, oh yeah. And of course, I appreciate this here. Let's see here. I wish I had a year on this, because with a year, we could have a 21-hour first woman, fabulous 21-hour journey, blind over the ocean. We got some Amelia Earhart going on, so that's awesome. Now, one of the flight simmer things that comes out with this particular island is the fact that this is a really classic stopover for folks flying to Europe. If you're flying an Airbus A316, don't quote me on that, one of the things you have to do is you can't get to UK right away. You have to stop somewhere, and this is kind of a classic stopover. So one of the things you can see over there in the distance as everybody's starting to spawn in is basically all your ocean jumpers. So they either went up to Greenland or they went to Nova Scotia and jumped over to here, and then they're going to jump over to Iceland and stuff like that. Snesmarap asks where we are. We're currently near the nearest airport to us is Bravo India Hotel India. That's just west of us. So that's going to be right over in here for those of you asking. What plane is this? I don't see. I'm sorry. I joined late. Don't see the video. Oh, this is a Boeing 247. This is a nice little mod that somebody created. I think it was Wings 42. It's just fantastic. As you can tell by the fact I have to yell over my own earmuffs, it is a very, very loud, rumbly plane. That was one of the reasons why I chose it today, because it's just so typical of something you'd expect to see in this area many, many years after the fact. This airplanes like this, of course, are also definitely the kinds of planes that I would want to fly over the Amazon. Like the DC-6 or the DC-3, you have to fly those over anywhere in South America. It's just kind of a thing like that. Cool. That makes it a little easier. I have a feeling I'm going to visit. Speaking of which, I have not said hi to anybody. My apologies. Linux Abs, welcome back. Esteel, welcome back. The Codifier, welcome back. Welcome back, all three of you. Fantastic. Great to see you. Absolutely great to see you. Oh, it is. It's like a little tiny thing. I love this thing. VR, this airplane isn't so good because the frame rate just dies. I think there's something about the engine simulation that just sucks frames down, which is a shame because when you get in this plane in VR, it's both bigger and smaller than you think it is. And this little pedestal here, this like chunk of metal, it's just so, like, I'm going to call it Gary's mod. It's just sort of wherever it lands. Yeah, just put it there. It'll be fine. I love the battery cutout switch. It's a push button. Like, oh man, this is so old school. Another thing, too, that I did mention earlier is your fuses are actually kept, and you have to maintain the fuses. So, like, if you try to overload it, like all these fuses, every single one of those fuses can be removed. So one of the things with this particular one here is you can actually, if you blow a fuse, I can open this, take out a fuse, pull it out of the spares, and then put it in here, and then slam it back down here. Yeah. This one's kind of fun. Like I said, it's all on your computer. Some computers are going to run this better, but I always found that the performance in this one in VR it isn't as good. It's sort of like for those of you who play DCS. Whoa! For those of you who play DCS, you probably experienced the H64 in VR, and you were woefully disappointed. I could fly the F-16 at like 120 frames per second in VR, but man, something about that H64 sends me down to the single digits. I don't know what it is. The Hind is fine. I can fly that thing all afternoon in VR, and that's so much fun to play with. One of the people, by the way, as everybody knows, we hit our 30,000, and I put a little video together. I love everybody's comments. Hopefully everybody got a chance to watch the follow-up video there, which is kind of answering all those questions. I thought that was kind of fun. Like, I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was slides, but I answered everybody's question, right? But one of the things that had come up, I actually kind of liked, was the idea of doing DCS videos that aren't about blowing stuff up, but a DCS video instead dedicated to flying the aircraft, as dumb as that sounds. You know, flying, the Gazelle from one place to another or something like that, or taking the F-16 for a spin from Adana or whatever, going over Israel with it or whatever. Just kind of just a different way to look at it, if that makes sense. Kind of that sort of thing, because I do enjoy just talking about airplanes. Tilt Racer, another one that if you like this, the Beechcraft 18 runs fine in VR, and that's a Microsoft Carinato joint. So that works really, really well. I am having a hell of a time keeping this thing stable. One of the things I read about this in my research of this plane years ago was the fact that it was a little bit too close to being relaxed stability. So you'd have a situation where you could never quite trim it out and kind of ignore it like you could some of the other planes, like Northrop Delta, which was a very similar plane. So it's one of those things where you turn your back and it just gets out of stability. It's just weird. It's almost like an F-16 kind of a thing like that. It's just kind of one of those things. All right, so we're heading into Reykjavik, which is going to be basically, see where all those people are? That's kind of where we're going, sort of a thing like that. And not too bad, like I said, a relatively short journey this evening because, we're getting close to the holidays. I do have something fun, though, on the day, oh man, I cannot quote dates. If you give me half a second, I'll get my calendar out real fast. What I'd like to do on December 30th is I'd like to do 3 live streams. I'd like to do one live stream dedicated to artificial intelligence. That'll be novel AI. I'd like to do a live stream dedicated to MSFS, which, hey, here we are. And I'd also, of course, like to do a command modern operations live stream as well. Kind of do a triple header sort of a thing, probably with 2 in the morning, 1 in the evening kind of a thing like that. Just as an opportunity to kind of make up for all those times that we missed because I've had to work so much. So our friend Butternips here says, the study of aerodynamics is basically TLAR. For those of you not familiar with TLAR, that's a technical term that aviation people use called that looks about right. And landing this plane is going to be an exercise in TLAR because if you can read the airspeed indicator, I'm impressed because I can barely find where the darn thing is. And it's not like it has, colored regions in it or anything like that. So this is definitely a TLAR sort of airplane. The other fun thing I love about this one, too, is not only do you have the massive, extremely loud engines with the radials, but you also have the oil cooler, which you can't see, but it's actually a little thing you can open and close in the wing. So you actually have 2 different cooling mechanisms for the purposes of maintaining the appropriate engine temperature on this. And you didn't have an engineer. You had this guy who basically had a scarf and goggles and said, let's go. Kind of one of those sort of situations, which is always thoroughly entertaining. Oh, gotta close this one. Of course, Butternuts owes me a joint flight with the PC-12 at some point, but we'll get that at some point, because that one came out very recently, and it's a pretty neat plane. I'm a TBM fan myself, but I understand they did a really bang-up job on that plane, so that'll be pretty cool to check out at some point. I like how airspeed, units of airspeed, 180. What does that mean? What unit is it? Another thing I love, too, is they actually model this accurately. This clock, you have to actually wind the knob or the clock stops. And, gory details. I love gory details. One of the things I used to do when I worked at the Air Museum is we let we let anybody who wants to come by climb into the lovely Huey, the UH-1. Great helicopter, by the way. I actually think I had a dream about it last night. It's just one of those things. And in that, of course, there was a 8-day clock on it. And my favorite sport to play was wind it up and then come back tomorrow and see how good the time is. And then, you come the next day, then you come the next day, and then you see how far you can actually get before it theoretically finally cuts out on you. And they're pretty accurate. 8 days, I think we got like 6, 7, 8, depends on how cold it was, kind of a thing like that. Smoots per fortnight. Thank you, Butternut. Oh, man, you are all over those incredibly obscure references. For those of you who don't know what a smoot is, that's the Professor Smoot. They tried to use him as a unit of measurement to measure a bridge. I think it was in Boston, if I'm not mistaken. And people always use it as kind of a nerdy reference when they're saying a specific thing. It's when you want to do angstroms, for example, if you want a very obnoxious measurement, or planks. We could do a plank second, but of course it would be, quadrillion plank seconds in the time it took me to say that. But, there's just fun units out there. And then for you physics nerds, of course, so we get things that jerk, yank. We also get snap, crackle, and pop. So when you go look up what those are a little later on, you'd be like, oh man, nerds. Have something to show. All right, we're getting into Reykjavik in about 8 or 9 minutes or so. Probably my guesstimation. I think we got about 50 nautical miles to go, so we're cruising quite along here. And we're going to be swinging around Reykjavik. The cool thing with Reykjavik, like I said when I first came to it, is this was a really important strategic location during the Cold War. And the reason it was, of course, is it was literally in the middle of the giant pond known as the North Atlantic. One of the things they actually did with the F-15 Eagle is they tried to design, I'm being escorted by a P-40. Oh, I've done goofed. One of the things they actually did is they modified the F-15 with extreme long-range capability. So it had the ability to basically go from here to England, or from here to the US, or here to Greenland, I should say, to be able to patrol that entire region. So they gave a combat-laden F-15 an absurdly long range. And it's, I think the not the NATF, that would not make any sense at all. But basically, it was a super duper long range version. And if you think, we're kind of enjoying, kind of tooling around, imagine flying over ocean in a single-seater airplane for, oh boy, I don't know, 8 hours, especially if you did refueling. No, thank you. No, thank you. It's tough enough to sit. I'm getting escorted here. Now I've goofed up. Done goofed. But, it's tough enough flying like a Mooney 20 for, an hour without, like, having to get unfolded with a crowbar. But I hate to think an F-15 for that length of time. Or an F-16 where you sit at that funny angle the whole time. Ugh, no fun. I wonder what that Smoots per fortnight actually translates to. I kind of want to do the math on that. Good to see Snessor again. If I were to be mean to my entire audience, and I want you to yell at me as far as my sound quality goes, see that little tiny red thing right there? All I have to do is pull it, and everybody will scream. But I won't do it. Don't worry. Don't worry. I understand my needs of my audience some days. Speaking of YouTube stuff, of course, I got my little YouTube year in review, which was kind of fun. They're like, your most popular video of the year was the Nuclearis video, and I went amazingly, unbelievably viral. And of course, if I was a smart person, I'd try to capitalize on that. But I don't know what else I could do with it. I did a great video on it this morning, actually, trying to do one of their scenarios. And of course, I found out my audio had cut out on me like 30 minutes in. And I'm like, well, I see how it is. Kind of a thing like that. But, oh well. Sometimes that happens, and I just kind of work with it. One thing you never get to see is how many failed video tries I have for the average video you see. So it's kind of one of those things. Pull. Okay. This is just for you, Rick. I hope you're happy. I told you. I love the guy who did the audio suite on this one. It is, especially at idle, it is exactly what I want in an airplane. I want something brumbly. I want something that's difficult to fly. I want something that doesn't do anything for you. This is like the definition of like, a PG plane kind of a thing, a P plane here. Because it's so unrefined. And I love that. And I absolutely love like I said, Rick out is it. Like I said, it's so unrefined, and I absolutely love it. So it's kind of one of those things. And again, I do have my audio like mixed properly on my OBS and everything. That was with the audio mixed properly, just so you know. All right, we're gonna have to go thread this mountain range up here and actually start our descent in a good old-fashioned brumbly twin-engine planes. DC-6 obviously fits in here. DC-3 fits in here. The D-18. It's still a brumbly twin-engine plane, but it's not quite the scale of this thing. I mean, like, watch this. You didn't know I could do that, did you? Oh, jeez. Now I've done. Oh my God. Oh boy. Excuse me, guys. A little privacy. I like the soap, man. When's the last time you've seen one of those things? All right, I'm done. I'm coming out. I'm not congregating. Relax. Woo. Nice. One of the things in X-Plane, the older versions, of course, the little 777 that they had, which was my second payware plane, by the way. First payware plane was an F-104 because, and of course, my second was the 777, which I have more hours flying that around the world. Not actually flying it. You just sort of set it loose in a direction with the autopilot, and you come back like after work, kind of a thing like that, and you land it because it is truly a world-lining airplane. But one of the things I love is just the detail, going out and sitting there like that. Oh boy, I've been in enough commercial flying. It's just kind of one of those things. Okie doke, we gotta descend. I'm just checking my little calculator here. I think we're pretty good. We're about 35, 36 miles away. Descent on this thing is a breeze. It's not like it has a VNO or VNE speed, so I can obviously point it straight down without any aerodynamic consequences or structural consequences. The real problem with this one, of course, is getting the landing gear down. And I don't say that like mean. I'm just saying getting them to go down, it's a process. You can go ahead and put them in the lower position, and you have to cross your fingers that you do not blow a fuse. The amount of times I've blown the gear fuse on this thing, it's embarrassing. And I will probably blow the gear fuse, so make sure everybody lets me know. When we start to descend and I put the gear down, I check to make sure they actually went down, because the last thing I want to have to do is pump the brakes down, or pump the gear down. Or if you've actually seen this lever here, this thing here is the emergency landing gear lever. What you have to do is you have to set it to the mode and go to actually lower the landing gear manually. So don't let me blow that fuse. And of course, you're saying, how do you not blow the fuse? You don't blow the fuse by not going too fast. If you go too fast and you put them down, it overloads the motors. And of course, the fuse goes. And then I might as well get the fuses ready. And I might as well get it all set because, it's all going to happen to me, kind of a thing like that. Chocolate chips are better. Love it. Well, let's see here. Which one's landing gear? Gear warning, dome light, washroom. Which one's gear? Which one's gear? I'm just getting ready. I'm getting ready. Generator. That's important. Don't blow that one. Landing lights. We don't need those. Gear motor. That's the one. Excellent. Oh, I still got to borrow you, Rick. We got to do something with the heads-up display on the 7.3. That would be definitely an awesome video. Now, one thing I liked about this 777, again, I'm not, as you can see, I'm more of a GA guy, because that's what I get to do in the real world. But the fun thing with the 777, too, and if we ever get the PMDG one, which apparently will happen at some point, when that happens, it's something I know I have a little practice with that plane, which is kind of fun. But one of the things I loved is on approach, when you came in with the autopilot, like you do in an ILS approach, you can pull through the autopilot to flare the plane. And it's just like the dirtiest thing, because you don't have to shut the autopilot off to do it. You just and pull through it. Because it's all, fly-by-wire. It knows what you're trying to do, and I just love that. Mr. C says so. I'm not sure. I'm actually drifting a little bit here. That's pretty good. But looking out my window again real quick. Let's take a little gander here. I feel like we're burning a lot of fuel from one side and not the other. That's all right. All right. Beautiful region here. But again, there's like one road. And one of the things you can do if you want to have some fun is if you type in Iceland road closures, there is a live website that tells you what road is blocked by anything going on in Iceland. And it's kind of amusing because the country's small enough you can have one website for that. But one of those things is you'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh, let's go see what we're doing, where we're going today, kind of a thing. And of course, you'd find that one out. Yes, I love PMDG. I think they make a fantastic product, which is pretty smooth, kind of a thing like that. Yes, Iceland is, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, you want to see that? This is beautiful. Achoo! I figured it's going to be a little whiter than that, I'm not going to lie, but you actually can see some texture, so it's a little less brown, so that's kind of nice. Kind of put it back to daytime. What a nice feature they added there. Also, hello, Toradon. Sorry I didn't get to it. Glad your birthday party was fun. I was thinking about doing this in the morning, but I spent 4 hours doing YouTube videos instead of my usual, much, much shorter than that. I had so many bugs I ran into across everything I was testing. You can hear my frustration in those videos, and for those of you who watch the ones that come out next week. Oof. Oof. We'll do an ILS approach. Yeah, let's do that. Wait a minute, let me try something real quick. I don't remember. I believe, is this the one I'm thinking about? Yes! We actually can fly the beam in this one, which is actually pretty cool if we wanted to. I'd have to go find what the beam stations are on this side of things, and I'd have to go find that one, but I'm not going to fly the beam. But you can actually fly the beam. For those of you not familiar with that, you get a beep in your left ear, a beep in your right ear. You're on course when both beeps sound as a constant tone. It's actually pretty cool how that does that. Where do you do your videos? Apply now. Can you be slightly more specific? Because that could be anywhere from my bedroom to specifically, like, in the world, you mean. Also not in my bedroom, it's in my office, but that's a different issue. One of the things I did this morning is I tightened up my actual stick, and I didn't realize how loose it was until I realized it was affecting how straight I could fly. So now it's all nice and tight and working again. Just love this. It's so pretty. It's like the American West, but brown. I can tell we're burning a lot of fuel out of one side of the plane, though. Definitely getting a little loosey-goosey. I don't think we can safely pull fuel out of that side, though. As I recall, yeah, everything should be coming out of the right main now. So we'll actually go ahead and slick this to the right position. There we go. We'll start pulling some fuel out of there because we are definitely running out of fuel on that side. Okay, so to answer your question, I have an office. We have a 3-bedroom house. One of the bedrooms is our bedroom. One of the bedrooms is my office, and the other bedroom is the wifey's office, kind of a thing like that. As far as what setup do you use for flying, if you're referring to real-world flying or you're referring to a virtual flying, I actually did a members video a little while ago on that exact subject. The other thing I did too is if you want to go back into my page a bit, you can see my equipment. I think it was either summer of this year or it was summer of last year when I released that video, but you can see every single thing I have with pictures and all that other good stuff that kind of comes along with it. I do not have a studio or anything like that. I'm not that fancy. I work 2 jobs, so it's tough as it is, trust me. So I got to work with what I got. This is needing progressively more right rudder the longer this flight goes, but at least it's a 1930s rudder where it's really, really strong. Not like modern rudders where you can stomp on it and the nose goes, oh. If you slip this plane, I would spin. Like, that's how much drag and skid this plane can generate. It's awesome. Love every bit of it. Let's go take a look here. All right. What do we got in the right? 55. What do we got in the left? Ready for pain? 28. Yikes. All right, we just have to get over this mountain range. For those of you who watch the Iceland travel videos, you always get to see this mountain range here, and it's a really lovely little range. But you see Reykjavik, like you always get the picture from the water where it's like Reykjavik, and then mountain, and it's like one of those. But like the Iceland version, like it's always a perfectly blue sky, and it looks delightful outside. If I wanted to turn on actual Iceland weather right now, of course, we can go blind here. That's what we get. What do you think? I can kind of make out Iceland there. I can kind of make it out. Of course, if I want to grab this handle like that and turn live weather back on, watch what happens if I try to go to 12 o'clock in the morning. That's as bright as it's going to get today. So I'm actually going to have to rewind back to October here so we can actually see. But we have the real world weather back on there, so I can see exactly what's going here. Let's see here. Weather. Go ahead and flip it back to high clouds. The pressure difference is so high, it was like messing up my approaches. That's okay, though. All right, high level clouds. All right, there we go. All right, so the question here is, what are your computer specs? Let's see here. It's an i9. It's a 12850K for the processor. I've got 32 gigs of RAM. Everything is a solid state hard drive. My main one is a 4 terabyte. My kind of Windows one is 1. Let's see here, what else? I've got a GTX 3080. I think it's a gigabyte. Yep, it's a gigabyte. And that's kind of it. Nothing else is crazy or not. One thing I don't do is have AI traffic on. It's a frame rate killer. The video you're actually watching right now is actually downsampled from my normal native resolution of like 3K, 2K kind of a thing, down to 1980 by 1020 kind of a thing. It just makes it easier. All right, let's descend. Let's see here, 12.6. Yeah, we got to get down. So I'm just going to pull the throttle back ever so slightly. I'm not going to pull a let's blow the engine out kind of a thing. But I will start enriching the mixture a little bit as we start to descend here. Now there's where my good friend Mr. Nips there would immediately point out the fact that since there's no VNE, we obviously can't exceed it. Nice. All right, we are all set with that. On the way down. So this is Reykjavik. This is the biggest city. This is where a lot of people live on this island. And it's just kind of a fun little thing here. Because, like I say, you always see this like in the tourism pictures, but like it's actually like empty. Civilization. That's it. It's just kind of the way it is. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I'll probably be doing the new computer thing sometime in the summer if things go okay. One of the things I got to keep an eye on, obviously, is interest in all that other stuff. I also have to have time. That's the toughest thing for me. Whoa! Sorry, everybody, if I deafened you just a little bit there. I just wanted to get a look at where the airport was. All right, nice. So, like, if it was a little more stable in pitch, this would be such a trip of a plane to fly, but it really, really is not stable in pitch. It's always going to start doing that, like, relaxed static stability thing on you. Wow, Rick, that's a lot of computer. That would take a lot to convince the wifey to go purchase a computer like that. So we'll definitely see kind of what's coming up in the future as far as that goes. Man, that's a lot of computer. My favorite thing, though, is no matter how good your computer is, Flight Sim will always find a way to lag. All you have to do is take the general aviation traffic slider and just pull it to the right. It doesn't matter. You're crushed. It's just like the good folks who play DCS. You're probably very familiar with things called mirrors, but maybe you're not because you never actually get to look at them. Or look through them, I should be more specific. And let's be honest, how many times have you actually seen something important behind you at DCS that you didn't already know was there? So what we're doing right now is a very, very long base turn into our little airport location here at Reykjavik, which is actually right over the right there. Let me go and fix this one. I'll get a better look here. In the real, by the way, when I fly in the real world, I have binoculars. My wife has a set, and I have a set. So it's kind of one of those things where some days you can use them, most days you can't. 60 frames per second in full 4K. Try that with, oh my gosh, what was the name of that plane with like the 6 engines or whatever? I don't know why. It just eats... No, that's not it. The ATR, Rick. Try the ATR 42 and see if you can still get that much. That thing is just a frame rate gobbler. I don't know how it does it. The 737 runs better than that. That thing's all complicated. I don't know what it is. Synthetic vision or something. Yes, I was mentioning earlier, now that I just remembered, we were planning on actually traveling up to Iceland. Kind of enjoy it, because it's not too bad of a vacation for us. 11 years married, by the way, in case you're curious. One of the things we were thinking of, well, it'll be 12 years at that point. But the big thing there was they were actually threatening volcanoes up north, which is going to obliterate a village, and that kind of makes me kind of sad. One of the problems they have now is all the next generation GPUs and things, you need a much more powerful processor than you used to need in the past. So that's definitely going to be kind of something to think about. So cool. The neat thing is the Naval Air Station is over there on the tip. We're not going to see that part, though. Actually, I'm sorry. The Naval Air Station should be on the other... I should be looking right at it. Whatever. There is quite an air base, though, in the actual place we're heading to right now. And there's a seaplane place, according to the little map there, but that's all right. Apply now. I do 2 things. Actually, they're basically the same thing. I teach high school, and I teach college. That's fine. No, I'm not hard to find. That's the great thing about being a public employee, is unfortunately, you're public. And there's our lovely runway we're going to be utilizing in a few minutes here as I'm kind of descending. I love the little houses and just all the noise and racket we're making. Look at how tiny their international airport is. Love that. Whoa. That's impressive, Rick. That's impressive. We got about 1,000 feet to go. I can get ready for my starts. Let's go ahead and get all ready here. This is the base. Does anybody know the approach speed on this thing? Because I'm going to be using the Solar method. See how I'm getting that stiff bump? That in the real world is indicative if you're going too fast. Okay. Remember what I said about landing gear? Remember, because I won't. I remember this. Coming in here with a 777 going, uh-oh, too close. And basically having to cut the throttle, go all the way out to there, and then turn all the way around and come back in, kind of a thing. We're definitely going to have to give ourselves some room here. Runway 1, by the way, in case you're doing the math. How do you do too? So for me, it's my day job is teaching high school. My Thursday and Saturday job is teaching a college class. It's just one of those things. All right, here we go. Oh! So one of the fun things is the videos we're doing next week. Not that you'll see them on Monday, obviously at 9 o'clock. We're doing the Mooney, and the Mooney 20. The third video is very amusing because just like he's pointing 121 gigawatts. Oh yeah, that plane is bizarrely way too fast, especially when you try to slow it down. The real world, it is not as fast as it is in the sim, but it's still a lot of airplane. I do some freelancey stuff too, but that's not very often. As people know me from Command, I do their corporate training videos, which is kind of fun. It's a slightly different personality when you're doing corporate training. That woke me up. Remember, there's no flaps. That's a go-around if I've ever seen one. Remember when I said this plane could slip so bad you could skid it? Watch this. Isn't that awesome? Ah, isn't that sweet? Please go down, please go down, please go down, please go down, please go down. Please go down, please go down. Yes! So, you thought for a second there I was gonna have to like go around or something. Like, isn't that the greatest sound? I love this. So you thought for a second there I wasn't gonna be able to make that landing, but you have to remember, we're 1920s drag, not modern drag. This thing just stops. Isn't it great? Like, this is easy. I can like I'll just slip again. Ah, I love 1930s. Look at this, I'm like sideways. Gosh, I love it. Absolutely, look at this. I'm like coming down on an elevator with this thing. I love these planes. They're just not safe. 63 knots, by the way, if you're curious. Going down. And we're lining up for landing here. Of course, Mr. Nips is going to watch me have to land a 2-engine plane that he does every day of the week. I don't. Actually, it's not true. He flies a turboprop now, so it's a little different. Yeah, it is such a cool plane. I love stuff like this. And if you go through the full startup procedure, it would have been taking us a while. If you watch the beginning of the video, you can watch me struggling. Is this runway 01 or runway 1? I'm very confused. Is this runway 10 and I'm going the wrong direction? I'm very confused. Don't confuse me, please. I'll meet everybody by the tower, by the way. Watch this. Ready for 1920? Here it comes, here it comes. Listen to that glorious crunch. Yeah, that's what I like in an airplane. Also, we're doing a nice soft field here. I haven't touched the brakes yet. I know! What's the deal with that? I like that. That's a good view of the mountain. Oh, one of my engines is gonna cut out on me in a second. I like the mountain, so I'm gonna go steal it. Just so everybody knows, I won't be able to do my crash into the ocean thing. Wait a minute. Right engine, go. There we go. There we go. All right, stand by for ground handling. Ground handling. Both engines will cut out, by the way. I'll park myself right here. Perfect. They cut off. All right, if anybody would like to join us for a picture, please join us over by the control tower. I'm going to try to get that mountain in the background there. Isn't it fantastic? Like I said, Brumbley twin-engine airplanes. Did I need to like specify what particular airplane? I want to make sure nobody else is coming in here. SDO is arriving. He's going to come there. That looks pretty good. Skirt, skirt. Pretty good landing, though. I was actually kind of surprised I didn't make the whole like suspension compress. I mean, if you look at the suspension on this thing, it's like, look at these big squishy wheels. Oh my gosh. And you managed to know how many extras of this. Also, in case anybody missed it, this is United Airlines. And yes, the engine shut off because I did the little slew feature, and it, of course, decided to crash out on us. All right. Oh, there he is. He's coming. He's coming. And I want people to do my little thing. So as always, when we reach the end of a live stream, I always like to ask, does anybody have any questions or things you'd like to see future? Oh, here's a go. What's your opinion on things like War Thunder DCS? I will never play War Thunder. It's not for me. It's not for me. People would probably guess why. All right, thank you for the picture. I've got it. Let's see. DCS, fantastic. I do videos on it. All right, folks, if there are no further questions, I've got a Christmas movie that my wife has promised to pick one out for us, so we're going to go watch that in a few moments. I'll be very curious to see which one we came up with, so I'm kind of excited about that, kind of a thing like that. And other than that, as always, absolutely enjoy. Thank you for coming by and supporting us. Thank you to our members, of course. We have 4 of them now. I started with 2, and I didn't say anything about membership, and now I'm surprised I've got 4. And like this, kind of neat. I did not expect that kind of a thing like that. United Breaks Guitars. Good to know, good to know. All right, folks, have a wonderful night and a happy holidays. We'll see you after Christmas.